Okay, good luck, everybody.
Good luck. Good luck.
I took a lady out west one night. She had a very large appetite. She asked me to take her out to dine, but when I counted out my money, I had 4 and 9. 4 and 9 I still have yet. 4 and 9 I'll never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine if you have in your pocket only 4 and 9. She started off with some oxtail soup, then stewed eels to loop the loop. Oysters, dear, she said, are fine, but I kept thinking of me 4 and 9. 4 and 9 I still have yet. 4 and 9 I'll never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine if you have in your pocket only 4 and 9. The next thing she ordered was a fillet of plaice. Then she put a chicken across her face, and as I watched it going down her spine, I said, Lord, have mercy on me, 4 and 9. 4 and 9 I still have yet. 4 and 9 I'll never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine if you have in your pocket only 4 and 9. In came the waiter and he looked at me. How about paying the bill, said he. He kept his right eye fixed on mine, but I kept me muscles on me 4 and 9. 4 and 9 I still have yet. 4 and 9 I'll never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine if you have in your pocket only 4 and 9. In came the boss and he gave me a stare. He put his foot, I won't say where. Out through the window I went flying, a-dancing on the pavement with me 4 and 9. 4 and 9 I still have yet. 4 and 9 I'll never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine if you have in your pocket only 4 and 9.
Fantastic.
Well, so thank you very much, Marion. I'd like to welcome everyone here this morning to our annual charity fundraising event. Every year, Turn Your Enterprise Centre with the Active IT Society organises a fundraising event here in-house in Turn Your Enterprise Centre. Obviously, this year, unfortunately, it is not safe to do so. So instead of missing out, we wanted to put our event online, and we are very grateful to Liam Mulcahy, who is our IT whiz here at Turn Your Enterprise Centre, for being putting this together for us over the last couple of weeks. The fundraising event that we are going to hold is for the Our Lady's Hospice and Care Services in Harold's Cross, which is very well known to our organisation because we've been raising money for the hospice for many years, and we certainly didn't want to miss out on this for this year. Before I hand you over to Aidan, who is our MC for today, I would like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And without further delay, I'm going to hand you over to TV and radio presenter and our MC for today, Aidan Power.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. And thank you to Turn Your Enterprise Centre and the wonderful Liz Feely for inviting me here today to be with you for our Christmas get-together and raising much needed funds, as David said, for the hospice, which is such a worthy cause. So Marion was our first performer there. She was right in straight at the start. So thank you very much to Marion Kerrigan, who's a cousin of Eleanor Shanley, no less. So she clearly didn't lick it off a stone, and she got a bit of a Joe Wicks workout in the performance as well. So fabulous stuff, Marion. Thank you very much. We have some wonderful people for you to meet today, some of whom you know, and we have some performances as well. So without further ado, let's welcome our first guest. And she does not need much of an introduction, if any. I will just say this: she is one of the most, if not the most beloved television presenter in this country. But she is so much more. It's the fabulous Mary Kennedy.
Aidan, it's lovely to be here and to be chatting with you. And it's lovely that you mentioned Liz, because Liz is the person that invited me as well, Liz Feely. And we go back a long, long way, don't we?
Yes, we do. Back to the days of Open House in the late 90s, where we first worked together. So it's a pleasure to see you again. And Liz was always the brains behind the operation, but she'll kill us if we say any more. Well, Mary,
out of a prefab. Do you remember back in those days? Our office was a prefab.
Out the back of RTE, when they had all the money in the world and they still put us in a shed. Hey ho. Well, Mary, wherever you are this morning, you look fabulous. The tree looks fabulous. It's better than my virtual one. How are you, Mary? How are you keeping?
Very well, thanks. And very happy, because I love Christmas and I love decorations. The tree is probably the most understated part of the room, because the place is just coming down with tick and tack and all sorts of baubles and stuff like that. I'm fine. Yeah, it's been a challenging year. There've been really wonderful moments, and there have been difficult ones as well, because, you know, I'm like everybody else. I love company, and during the lockdowns, there were days that were fine, where you were kind of zen, and there were days that were very difficult, and, you know, just miss the contact with friends and family.
Yeah, it has been a daily thing, sometimes an hourly thing for people. What has kept you going?
Well, I suppose the notion that we are all in this together. The second lockdown, I found fine, because I was working and one was allowed travel for work. So I was very busy. And the joy of being able to, I suppose, see family during the summer, go on holidays during the summer. It was supposed to be France, but in actual fact, it was beautiful places in Ireland. And I mean, from doing Nationwide for so many years, I was really pleased that everybody got an opportunity to appreciate and to savor what we have in this country. And I hope that continues after we're, allowed to go further afield. And then 2 weeks ago, my daughter Eva, down in Limerick, she had her second baby. She has a little boy called Paddy, who's 19 months, and now she and Benny have a little girl called Holly, because she was born. She's a little dote, Aidan.
Ah, that's sweet. Would it be Noel if it was a boy?
I'm not sure, actually. Yeah.
If they keep it with
Holly,
the festive.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that they chose Holly, but it is a beautiful name. And, she's there, she's oblivious, but she's there. She got a little baby grow saying, I was born in 2020, I'll survive anything.
Ain't that the truth? And on that, given the differences that this year has caused and the exceptions to everything, how was it for her and her partner with having the baby under COVID restrictions?
Yeah, it was tough. And to be honest, she was very glad of the fact that it wasn't her first baby. Now, when she was in Limerick Maternity Hospital, there were other women having their first baby, and her heart and anybody's heart would go out to them, because, it's quite scary for your first. She was lucky in that it was her second, but she was very very lonely when Benny had to stay in the car until she actually was going into the delivery room. And then he was allowed up to be there at the birth, and then for 1 hour afterwards. And that was it. He had to leave then. And the next time he saw them was when he went in to collect them from the hospital. She said it was so emotional. He was there waiting outside the door with the little carry pot, and this was kind of 5 days later, because Holly had a little bit of jaundice, so she had to stay in a bit longer. 5 days later, and she said they came out the door. I'm almost getting emotional myself, and he just burst into tears. It was just hard,
Wow.
It's like for first-time parents, just so emotional. But they are looking at that. I know in some hospitals in Dublin, they have eased those restrictions. I think it's pretty important, and I hope they do it right around the country. But they have a healthy baby, they're at home, and they're very happy.
Okay, well, that's great news, and a nice way to round out the year as well, despite the circumstances in which they had to do it, which I can only appreciate and imagine were very difficult. So Mary, am I right in saying it's this time last year when you retired? Are we a year? Like I'm
Yes.
hesitant to use the word because it doesn't really mean anything.
I retired from Nationwide, Aidan, and I retired from Nationwide because I didn't have any choice. Yes, actually, my retirement party was on the 11th of December last year, when we could all get together, and RT threw a really lovely party in Studio One. But yeah, so I did retire. It was a year ago, and I missed Nationwide. I miss parts of Nationwide, but the things that I've been doing since, some of them have been quite reminiscent of the kind of work that I did in Nationwide, like the Guaranteed Irish program that I'm doing, which the last one goes out next Monday for TG Cahir, is about promoting Irish enterprise and business and seeing how they started. A lot of them were family businesses, small to start off, and how they coped with COVID and how they have become so successful both at home and internationally. And to make you very proud to be Irish, you know, talking to these people, because their main concern with COVID, with all of them, was keeping the jobs. And they were conscious of their workforce being families who needed their wages at the end of the week. And that's the kind of spirit that runs through Nationwide, runs through people in this country for the most part. That was lovely. And then there were other things as well, like the podcasts with women writers, many of whom I met for the first time on Open House. Like, it was lovely to have opportunities to speak with the likes of Patricia Scanlon, Sheila O'Flanagan, Kathy Kelly, Mary McAleese, all of those. So they were nice moments as well. And of course there was the dancing.
Well, this is the thing, and plenty of people want to know about the dancing, and plenty of people adored you and John on it. And I guess you were afforded the time to do things that probably you wouldn't have been able to do when you were traveling around the country weekly for Nationwide.
Yeah, that's true. This time last year, I knew I was going to be starting onto a very tough training regime on the 2nd of January. We'd already done bits before Christmas. So Aidan, I ate all around me. They said, will you have another bit of cake? Yes, of course I will, because I'm going to be really sweating it out from the 2nd of January on. And it was really physical. It was very intense. It was 7 hours a day. Even more at the weekend, but it was so exhilarating. And I just loved the physicality of it. And the fact, you know, that when you're dancing, it just puts you in a nice place. And also it's a celebration of your body, you know, and activity. And I would encourage anybody to just embrace that. It was the most wonderful thing. I'm so glad I did it. And John was just a gentleman and a very patient man.
How far outside of your comfort zone were you?
From here to the moon.
Well, that's even all more impressive then.
Oh my goodness. And I didn't really realize it. I was always a fan, and myself and my kids, we'd always kind of look for tickets to go down to the audience on other years, and we'd get down there once and love it. So when they asked me, and I was now able to do it because I was not going to be doing Nationwide, I said yes, and I was glad I did. But I loved the physicality of it. I loved the training. But when you went down to Ardmore Studios, where it was filmed on a Saturday and Sunday, my goodness, then you knew how far outside your comfort zone you were. It was scary, but it was great. It was just lovely. The thing that we all loved most was on Saturday, after a hard day of rehearsals, you went and you got a spray tan. What's not to like about that? It was gorgeous. And then you'd get these gorgeous, fabulous makeup, fabulous hairstyles, and beautiful costumes. And yeah, we were all in it together. It's a bit like COVID. We were all in it together, and we got on really well. We managed to have one reunion afterwards, and you know, we're all good for reunions, but we have another one planned for when we get out of this.
Okay, so lifelong friendships forged and memories you'll never forget. And
the other thing about it is friendships right across the generations, you know, because, okay, I was the eldest, but the youngest was 23, you know, the youngest person taking part as a competitor. So yeah, we've stayed in touch, and we had a gathering for John Nolan turned 30 during the summer, so it was nice to be able to celebrate that. And yeah, lovely.
And it's also led, Mary, now to you adding singing to your bow. Now, I know you can sing anyway. I just didn't know you had a record out or one day would end up in a studio. And that came from the show because there was a certain famous singer-songwriter watching and you inspired him.
Well, Don Mescal is a really gorgeous man. And I met him because I was doing an at home with him in Nationwide. He was based in London, but he'd come home to spend Christmas always with he's from Ahan in Limerick. And he was watching Dancing with the Stars last January with his mother. She's 96 years young. She's a beautiful woman, full of vibrancy and love of life. And they were watching myself and John doing a slow waltz. And his mom said to him, you know, yourself and myself and your dad used to always do a little waltz around the kitchen every morning before he went to work. He used to cycle into Limerick City. He worked for CIE. And Don was just looking at me and John and thinking of his mom and dad. And he said, the title just came to me, Life is a Beautiful Dance. And I think it's a very life affirming, it's a waltz time. It's got beautiful words. Well, he's a wonderful songwriter. He's written for Boyzone, for Westlife, for Nathan Carter, for the Spice Girls, other people like that. So he gave it to me as a gift. And I said, God, what a lovely gift to get. And then he said, you know, we should release this for a charity. And I said, yes, what a good idea, Don. And I thought he was going to sing it. And he said, no, this is your song. Now, I couldn't do it on my own. I do like singing, and I do like singing along. So my sister Deirdre, who's, as you know, a lovely singer, she came and we did it together. So we share it. And there's a lovely video to go with it. Shinna Will gave us some nice footage of us dancing. And we've also, everybody has been so generous. Don has done all of this for nothing. John Nolan came to Bushy Park one Sunday afternoon when we could, and we did a little waltz down by the lake. And that's part of the video now, which will be going in. And it's a beautiful, uplifting song. And it couldn't be for a better cause than Family Carers Ireland, because they do such wonderful work in the home caring for loved ones.
Mary, how many carers are there in Ireland?
There was a health survey done last week, and the results were published. There are 500,000 family carers in this country. The majority of them are caring full-time, you know, maybe for a spouse who is incapacitated, or for a child who has a physical or an intellectual disability, or for, you know, a parent who might live next door. And they give so much. They save the state 10 billion a year. And they're, you know, they get very little. The carers allowance is quite small. Fundraising has been very difficult this year for obvious reasons. And things like respite have been put on hold, you know, and it's just so, it's such a difficult, myself and Marty Whelan are patrons, and every year under normal circumstances, we would have a lunch in the West End for the Care of the Year Awards. And Aidan, the stories would really make you feel very humbled. And there are also young carers. There are children as young as 10 years of age, and maybe getting their siblings out to school, or caring for a parent who has had an accident. It's just an amazing group of people. And sometimes it can be quite isolating and a lonely existence. So it's so important for them to know that people care for the carers.
Well said, Mary. Yeah, and you're shining a light on them. So the song is Life is a Beautiful Dance. People can download it, and there is proceeds going.
Yeah, you download it on iTunes. It's 99 cents, and it that goes to family carers. You can also text family carers to 50300, and that donates €4. And we are, we're hoping that lots of people will download it, will support carers. And Deirdre, my sister, who's a very free spirit, she said what she'd love is that people, when they are listening to it, would kind of dance in their kitchens or dance in their gardens, and just, you know, embrace life, because it's a beautiful dance.
Lovely. Mary, have you heard of what they call in the business a triple threat?
No?
Okay, so that would be someone who sings, someone who dances, and someone who acts. So is that next on your list?
Oh, I would be a wonderful stepmother, wouldn't I, in a panto? I'd love telling people what to do.
You'd be the wicked stepmother, would you?
I could be very wicked. Yes, I enjoy that.
Okay. Now, we all know and love you for your work that we see you doing on the TV and elsewhere. But I'm wondering, is there a certain generation of people going, oh, that's Dermot Kennedy's aunt? Is that what you're known for?
There is a lot of people. Yeah, Dermot Kennedy's aunt. It's funny, in interviews prior to this point where we released the single, people would say, you know, did you give Dermot tips about coping with notoriety and fame? And now all the interviews are, did Dermot give you any tips about singing? And the answer to both questions is no.
Okay.
But myself and Deirdre have this little kind of tiny dream that we might kind of, because he's number 1 and number 2 in the chart, might kind of get in there for Christmas over him.
Could you imagine? The Kennedys dominating the charts. Well, we'll all support your cause and try and knock your nephew off number 1. That's for sure. Mary, you mentioned the podcast earlier. Just tell us a bit more about that and where people can listen to it. It's for Senior Times. Yes,
Senior Times is a magazine, which I'm sure many people at this gathering will be familiar with. It's aimed at people over 50, and it's their mantra is for people who don't act their age. So they have during lockdown, I got a phone call in the summer from Mike Murphy, whom we know from the Live Mike and those kinds of programs years ago. Very funny man, and he said, would you be interested in doing some podcasts for Senior Times? He was doing a series of them. John McColgan was doing a series on music. Kathleen Watkins did some beautiful ones on poetry. And he asked me what I would like to do. And I have always been in awe of the Irish women writers because they're very creative. They're very successful. They're translated into umpteen languages right around the world. They deal with real issues and real people, and they're also a huge support to each other. They are a family. They're unbelievably supportive of each other. I mean, even me, I've written a few books, and they would always come to my book launch just to show support. You know, that's the kind of women that they are. So it was a lovely opportunity. It's called Mary Kennedy Meets. And it was the luxury of sitting down for an hour with somebody like Patricia Scanlon and chatting about her life, her writing, all her joys. It was just lovely. And the same with all of the other women. And they all have different backgrounds, which is interesting as well. Like Patricia was a librarian. Sheila O'Flanagan was a tax consultant. Mary McAleese was a president. Kathy Kelly was a journalist and a UNICEF ambassador. They all have different. Rachel English presents Morning Ireland still. All fabulous women.
Yeah, and as a broadcaster, you'll know this. When you're doing live TV and things like that, things can be very rushed and very short. Whereas with the podcast, you've all the time in the world, and that's where you find out the really interesting stuff. So, highly recommended for people on their daily walks or when they're just sitting by the fire.
Thank you.
Worth to listen. So, Mary, we're going to see you on our TV screens at Christmas. What can we look forward to?
Well, the Christmas carols, as always. Now it's different this year. It's called Carols at Home. And I'm there in Dublin. In the RDS, there was space for not all of the concert orchestra, the RT concert orchestra, a lot of it. Celine Byrne is there. Then there's some pieces from Maynooth Chapel, which I also did. And then there's a lovely woman. She's from Galway, but she lives in Clare, and she's a folk musician. Her name is Ruth Smith, and she did some pieces. She plays the fiddle, where she accompanied and chatted with some people like in Ennis and in Dingle. And then cameras then went to places where, like Sister Stan does a reflection, and Micheál Ó Muircheartaigh read a poem. So it's a very different Christmas carols, but the the glam and the glitter is still there, because we need really a little bit of cheer in our lives coming up to Christmas. And then on Christmas morning, I'm doing the commentary on the Eurovision Mass at 10 a.m., which, I'm going to have to start a bit of work on that because it's in French. And my job is to translate it and make it accessible it's coming from Switzerland, you see, so it'll happen in French.
Okay, so you have a busy Christmas morning to start the Christmas day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but no
Okay.
messing on Christmas Eve.
Well, Mary, it's great to see you and to see you so busy as ever. Before you recite a poem for us, I've been asking guests and listeners on my radio show this week. We're compiling a list of words, phrases of 2020 that we never want to hear again. We want to consign them to history. Is there a phrase or word that entered the vocabulary this year that you're over? There's probably many.
Lockdown.
Lockdown. Okay.
Yeah. And bubble.
Bubble.
Don't
Okay.
want to be part of a bubble. I want to be part of a family and a gang and, a group having, fun.
Yes, we're all missing fun and touching each other and shaking hands and high-fiving and hugging and all those kind of things.
Yeah, I'd like the word hug to be back in the vocabulary.
In big capitals. I heard Tommy Tiernan joke on his own podcast that he wants to have instead of like an electric picnic festival, just a hug fest. Everyone just gets together and
and virtual. I'm fed up. I know you have a beautiful virtual tree there behind Jane, but virtual. I mean, I prefer real.
100%. It's great we have the technology to do all these kind of things, but nothing will ever beat face to face. But things are boding well for 2021. So we'll end on a positive note. Mary, thank you so much for being with us. What poem have you picked to recite for us today? Okay,
well, this is a poem that I really, really love because I think it captures the simplicity and the joy and the magic of Christmas in rural Ireland. It's Patrick Kavanagh's poem, A Christmas Childhood. So, or A Childhood Christmas, I'm not sure which way it goes. But anyway, I'll read a piece from it if you'd like. Okay, will I read it?
That. Thank you, Mary.
My father played the melodeon outside at our gate. There were stars in the morning east, and they danced to his music. Across the wild bogs, his melodeon called to Lennons and Callans. As I pulled on my trousers in a hurry, I knew some strange thing had happened. Outside in the cowhouse, my mother made the music of milking. The light of her stable lamp was a star, and the frost of Bethlehem made it twinkle. A water hen screeched in the bog. Mass-going feet crunched the wafer ice on the potholes. Somebody wistfully twisted the bellows wheel. My child poet picked out the letters on the grey stone. In silver, the wonder of a Christmas townland, the winking glitter of a frosty dawn. Cassiopeia was over Cassidy's hanging hill. I looked, and 3 whin bushes rode across the horizon, the 3 wise kings. An old man passing said, "Can't he make it talk?" The melodeon. I hid in the doorway and tightened the belt of my box-pleated coat. I nicked 6 nicks on the doorpost with my penknife's big blade. There was a little one for cutting tobacco. And I was 6 Christmases of age. My father played the melodeon, my mother milked the cows, and I had a prayer like a white rose pinned on the Virgin Mary's blouse. That's it.
That's fabulous. We are all virtually applauding everyone who's tuned in right now. I know you can't hear us, but it is there. 6 Christmases old. I love that. That's very sweet.
I know. Yeah.
And that's what one of your famous favorite poems by Patrick Kavanagh?
Yeah, it is. It's lovely. And there are others as well. I love all the traditions, like putting the candle in the window, and there are lovely poems about that as well in the Irish language. Martin O'Dearán wrote one, and Maura McAtee. And it's just lovely because the whole tradition of the candle was to welcome the Holy Family. But, in this year that we've had, isn't it lovely to think that there's a candle lighting in your window just to show welcome and love and support to anybody that's passing by?
That's sweet. Yeah, and long may that last. Mary, thank you so much for your time today. It's
Not at
it's
all.
lovely to see you and seeing you doing
And you
so
too,
well
Aidan.
and busier than ever.
Have a very happy Christmas and a happy Christmas to everybody. And here's to 2021.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much.
On.
Fabulous as always, Mary, a joy, and we could chat and chat all day. So I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Thanks to everyone who is tuning in and watching at the moment. And thank you for supporting as well what is such an important and great cause for the hospice in Harold's Cross. Now, our next performer has appeared on my screen, replete with her Robin Christmas tree, and hopefully she's on your screen too as well. This is Sandra Lang. Hi, Sandra.
Hello there.
You're going to tell us a story, a famous story. What is it?
It's called Tilly's Christmas, and it's by Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes, ready to go?
Ladies and gentlemen, Sandra Lang.
Thank you. I'm so glad tomorrow is Christmas because I'm going to have lots of presents. So am I glad, though I don't expect any present but a pair of mittens. And so am I, but I shan't have any presents at all. As the three girls trudged home from school, they said these things, and as Tilly spoke, both the others looked at her with pity and surprise. For she spoke cheerfully, and they wondered how she could be happy when she was so poor. She could have no presents at Christmas. Don't you wish you could find a purse full of money right in the path? Said Kate, the child who was going to have lots of presents. Oh, don't I? If I could keep it honestly. And Tilly's eyes shone at the very thought. And what would you buy? Asked Bessie, rubbing her cold hands and longing for her mittens. I'd buy a pair of large warm blankets, a load of wood, a shawl for my mother, and a pair of shoes for myself. And if there was enough left, I'd give Bessie a new hat, and then she needn't wear Ben's old felt one, answered Tilly. The girls laughed at that, but Bessie pulled that funny hat over her ears and said she was much obliged, but she'd rather have candy. Let's look, and maybe we can find a purse. People are always going about with money at Christmas time, and someone may lose it here, said Kate. So they went along the snowy road and they looked about them, half in earnest, half in fun, and suddenly Tilly sprang forward, exclaiming, I see it! I found it! The others followed, but all stopped disappointed. For it wasn't a purse, it was only a little bird, and it lay upon the snow with its wings spread and feebly fluttering, as if too weak to fly. Its little feet were benumbed with cold. Its once bright eyes were dull with pain, and instead of a blithe song, it could only utter a faint chirp, now and then, as if crying for help. Nothing but a stupid old robin, cried Kate. I shan't touch it. I once found one once and took care of it, and the ungrateful thing flew away the minute it was well, said Bessie. Oh, poor little birdie, how pitiful he looks, and how glad he must be to see someone coming to help him. I'll carry him home to Mother. Don't be frightened, dear. I'm your friend. And Tilly knelt down in the snow, stretching her hand to the bird with the tenderest pity in her face. And Kate and Bessie laughed. Don't stop for that thing. It's getting late and cold. You wouldn't leave it to die, cried Tilly. I'd rather have the bird than the money, so I shan't look any more. The purse wouldn't be mine, and I should only be tempted to keep it. But this poor thing will thank me and love me, and I'm so glad I came in time. Gently lifting the bird, Tilly felt its tiny claws cling to her hand, and saw its dim eyes brighten as it nestled down with a grateful chirp. And now I've got a Christmas present after all, she said, smiling as they walked on. I always wanted a bird, and this one will be such a pretty pet for me. He'll fly away at the first chance he gets and die anyhow, so you'd better not waste your time over him, says Bessie. He can't pay you for taking care of him. My mother says it isn't worthwhile to help folks that can't help us, added Kate. Well, my mother says, do as you're done by. and I'm sure I'd like anyone to help me if I was dying of cold and hunger. And love your neighbour as yourself is another of her sayings. And this bird is my little neighbour, and I'll love him and I'll care for him, as I often wish our rich neighbour would love and care for us, answered Tilly, breathing her warm breath over the benumbed bird, who looked up at her with confiding eyes, quick to feel and know a friend. Oh, what a funny girl you are, said Kate, caring for that silly bird and talking about loving your neighbour. Mr. King don't care a bit for you, and never will, though he knows how poor you are. So I don't think your plan amounts to much. I believe it, though, and I shall do my part anyway. Good night. I hope you'll have a Merry Christmas and lots of pretty things, answered Tilly as they parted. Her eyes were full, and she felt so poor as she went on along alone towards the little old house where she lived. It would have been so pleasant to know that she was going to have some of the pretty things all children love to find in their full stockings on Christmas morning, and pleasanter still to have been able to give her mother something nice. So many comforts were needed, and there was no hope of getting them, for they barely get food and fire. Never mind, Birdie, we'll make the best of what we have, and I know God won't forget us if everyone else does. She stopped a minute to wipe her eyes and lean her cheek against the bird's soft breast, finding great comfort in the little creature, though it could only love her and nothing more. See, Mother, what a nice present I've got, she cried, going in with a cheery face that was like sunshine in the dark room. Oh, I'm glad of that, dearie, for I haven't been able to get my little girl anything but a rosy apple. Poor little bird. Give it some of your warm bread and milk. Why, Mother, what a big bowlful. I'm afraid you gave me all the milk, said Tilly, smiling over the nice steaming supper that stood ready for her. I've had plenty, dear. Sit down and sit down and dry your wet feet and put the bird in my basket on this warm flannel. Tilly peeped into the closet and saw nothing there but dry bread. Mother's given me all the milk and is going without her tea, because she knows I'm hungry. Now I'll surprise her, and she can have a good supper too. She's going to split wood, and I'll fix it while she's gone. Tilly took out a plummy bun that one of the school children had given her, and she had saved for her mother. Such a poor little supper, and yet such a happy one, for love, charity, contentment were guests there. And that Christmas Eve was a blither one than that up at the great house, where lights shone, fires blazed, and a great tree glittered. Music sounded as the children danced and played. We must go to bed early, for we've only wood enough to last over to tomorrow. Oh, if my bird was only a fairy bird and would give us 3 wishes, how nice it would be. Poor dear, he can't give me anything. But it's no matter, answered Tilly, looking at the robin, who lay in the basket with his head under his wing, a mere little feathery bunch. He can give you one thing, Tilly, the pleasure of doing good. That is one of the sweetest things in life, and the poor can enjoy it as well as the rich. As her mother spoke, Tilly suddenly started and pointed to the window, saying, oh, in a frightened whisper, I saw a man's face looking in. It's gone now, but I truly saw it. Tilly's mother went to the door. No one was there. The wind blew cold, the stars shone, the snow lay white on field and wood, and the Christmas moon was glittering in the sky. I wish there was a curtain there, said Tilly. I like to have our light shine out in the evening, for the road is dark and lonely just here, and the twinkle of our lamp is pleasant to people's eyes as they go by. We can do so little for our neighbours. I am glad to cheer the way for them. Now put these poor old shoes to dry and go to bed, dearie. I'll come soon. Tilly went, taking her bird with her to sleep in the basket nearby, lest he should be lonely in the night. No one saw the Christmas spirits at their work that night. When Tilly opened the door the next morning, she gave a loud cry, clapped her hands, and then stood still, quite speechless with wonder and delight. There before the door lay a great pile of wood, all ready to burn, a big bundle and a basket, and a lovely nosegay of winter roses and holly. "Oh, Mother, did the fairies do it?" cried Tilly, pale with her happiness as she seized the basket while her mother took in the bundle. "Yes, dear, the best and dearest fairy in the world, called Charity. She walks abroad at Christmas time, does beautiful deeds like this, and does not stay to be thanked," answered her mother with full eyes as she undid the parcel. There they were, the warm, thick blankets, the comfortable shawl, the new shoes, and best of all, a pretty winter hat for Bessie. The basket was full of good things to eat, and on the flowers lay a paper saying, "For the little girl who loves her neighbour as herself," read Tilly, laughing and crying with joy. And as she spoke, the little robin flew to the table, hopped to the nosegay, perching among the roses, began to chirp with all his might, and the sun streamed on the flowers, the bird and the happy child, and no one saw the shadow glide away from the window, and no one ever knew that Mr. King had seen and heard the little girls the night before, or dreamed that the rich neighbour had learned a lesson from the poor neighbour. And Tilly's bird was a fairy bird, for by her love and her tenderness to the helpless thing, she brought good gifts to herself, happiness to the unknown giver of them, and a faithful little friend who did not fly away, but stayed with her till the snow was gone, making summer for her in the wintertime.
Sandra, that was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful.
I'm glad you liked it.
What a beautiful story, and so well delivered. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
You're very
Tilly's Christmas, of course, written by Louisa May Alcott. Sandra, terrific stuff. Thanks for being with us today. Now, for everyone watching, before we meet our next guest, we have a competition. That means we have a prize for you to win. And the prize is a choice of a free Zoom course, any course of your choice, if you can answer this question correctly. And we're going to ask you to email in the answer to this question. I'll give you the email address after the question. And it is this: what is the title of the famous 1991 film which starred Julia Roberts and our next guest, Hollywood star Patrick Bergin, in the starring role? So if you know the answer and you want to win a Zoom course of your choice for free, you now need to send your answer and your name by email to lmulcahy, that's lmulcahy at Terenure-Enterprise.ie, lmulcahy@Terenure-Enterprise.ie. So by way of introducing our next guest, who we can see on screen there, I better not mention that movie that he's kind of famous for being in, but we can tell you he's been in many others, including Patriot Games, EastEnders of recent times. We've also seen him in the Southwesterlies, but a man who's done so much more than acting as well. He's a poet, he's a singer, and a passionate supporter of the arts. And it is an absolute honor and pleasure to welcome, joining us today for this special charity fundraiser, the one and only Patrick Bergin. Hi, Patrick.
Hello there. How are you doing?
Very well, sir. Thank you for joining us. We can see
I think I'm going to win this competition.
Did you take that email address, Patrick?
I think I'm going to. I did, and I'm a virgin Zoomer.
Grand. Well, Patrick's now in the competition to win a free Zoom as well. Hey, Patrick, like I said, thanks for being with us today. Where in the world are you coming to us from?
Coming from Rathmichael, rather, near Bray, County Wicklow.
Ah, okay. Because I know you have what you call the the Bergen Triangle, and that can take you anywhere in the world.
Exactly. It's where you disappear between three places. Yeah. And it's now Tipperary. Down, I've got a castle down in Tipperary, and I've been down there recently doing some work down there. But I'll be spending Christmas in Bray.
Okay. So is Ireland home, or do you still travel? Obviously, notwithstanding 2020, but would you still travel a lot to America?
I've been here for the whole of this year since lockdown.
Okie doke. Well, let's talk about this year to start then, Patrick. How do you reflect on the most extraordinary year of everyone's life?
It's been wonderful, and like a lot of people, I've been doing Netflix a lot, and I mentioned that I was looking at Undo. Have you seen The Undo?
The Undoing.
No.
The Undoing.
Oh, this is the latest one with Hugh Grant, is it?
Hugh and Nicole Kidman and
Yes.
Edgar Ramirez.
Yes,
And
I know it was very
just
popular.
at the end of last year, I was actually in South Africa with Edgar Ramirez, who plays the detective in that.
Ah,
And
okay.
it's been a busy year. I've been doing a lot of the previous year. My place in Tipperary suffered a lot of storm damage, and I've been down there getting the roof fixed and getting a lot of things done as well. So in many ways, it's a mixed blessing, but it's been a very tough year for everybody.
Yes, that's for sure.
But
But it's given you.
one of the great things is it shows how dependent we all are on each other.
Yeah, that kind of worried me as well initially, because it was a reminder just how really vulnerable we are, and that we need the care and the support of each other, and particularly our medical staff and our frontline workers, that without them, we're in trouble.
Absolutely. It is wonderful that I'm honored to be a part of this campaign. It reminds me of something my father said years ago. He used to say that there was three things a person needed: a roof over their head, food on the table, and a flower in a vase. And the flower in the vase represents all the love and care and art and just caring for each other that people have been doing this year. It's been wonderful. So we've learned a lot about ourselves as people and as human beings this year.
That's for sure. Will you tell us a bit about your dad and the influence he had on you in your early life? Because he was a prominent trade unionist, is that right?
That's right. He was his Labour senator, and as I said, his care for people was immense. And he wrote poetry, and he wrote. He became a senator, and he led a strike, in fact, in Carlow in the late 40s, because a lot of people were being especially farm workers and farm labourers were being very badly treated. And so he went on strike to raise their standards, and they managed to win the strike, and but he had to sacrifice his job in order for that to happen.
Wow. And Patrick, when you got your start in the entertainment business, the acting world, the music world, was that something he was supportive of and understanding of, or would he have liked you to follow his footsteps?
Very much so. Very much so. The reason he was so influential in that way is that when he was organising the farm labourers, he felt that with respect, they didn't always walk and talk at the same time. So he set up a theatre in Carlow called the Little Theatre, and it still exists to this day. I think its 75th anniversary is this year, and he started that up in order to teach his men how to be confident in themselves and raise their own, if you like, ability to communicate. And that was so he did that, and he influenced my elder brother Emmett, who's also in the arts, and I followed along.
Okay, that's incredible. Well, with that kind of support behind you, I'm sure it made it all the easier. But it's a tough business to succeed in. Where was the big break before we talk about that movie?
Well, in fact, in many ways, it was in London, in Camden Town, Kentish Town, Camden Town area where I lived. And there was a place down there called the Falcon. It was a pub theatre. And there's a guy called Shane Connaughton who actually was the screenwriter of Christy Brown's story,
My Left Foot.
And he did a screen adaptation for that. And he was putting up. There was another actor who I liked and knew quite well, and I was there. And he came over to me and he said, "Are you an actor?" So I said, "Yeah." And he said one of his students, Niall Leonard, was doing he was at the National Film and Television School, and I did a little half-hour film for them. And by doing that, I got an agent. And I used to play music up in Norway. I'd be up in Norway a month at a time, and you had to, in those days, it was a professional gig done under British Standard Equity contracts. And in order to get work, you had to have an equity contract. And these music gigs used to wear official variety and contracts. So I ended up having 30 weeks of which allowed me to work in the business. So then I did some voice lessons with in equity.
Okay, we seem to be having a little bit of signal trouble there, but hopefully. Oh, you're back, Patrick. Yeah, you just froze on us, so sorry. You can carry on.
What I said was that I managed to get 30 weeks of work, and I took in order to get an equity card, and then I went for voice lessons to RADA. So when I was asked, trying to get a better agent, I said yes, I studied at RADA, which was sort of a posh thing to say.
That helped. So then there was a movie before Sleeping with the Enemy, which was called Mountains of the Moon. Is that ultimately what led to you being cast opposite Julia Roberts?
Yeah. Bob Rafelson is one of the greatest directors of all time. He kind of invented Jack Nicholson, for example.
Wow.
And he came to London looking for the new Sean Connery, new Peter O'Toole, and he found Ian Glenn, who you're aware of his work. He's the new Peter O'Toole, and I was flattered to be called the new Sean Connery. And it was about actually a guy who was in Ireland. He called himself Irish, Richard Burton. He was an explorer who went to discover the source of the Nile. And so we went to Africa, and it was a wonderful experience being in Africa. And I worked with the tribes people there I was there for nearly 4 or 5 months. I slept in teepees and all sorts of bush environments out in the desert beside the lake, and it was just a wonderful experience. And it although it wasn't a huge success commercially, it got a very good artistic success. And as a result of that, I was at the premiere in New York. The head of 20th Century Fox, who was casting for Sleeping with the Enemy, if I'm allowed to say that, was there, and I got invited to LA and did my audition with the people in 20th Century Fox. It's almost as nerve-wracking as being on this.
I'd say it might be a little bit more to go from over to LA into what I'd imagine is a big boardroom with a lot of big TV, big movie people. But you got the part nonetheless, and it transformed you into a global superstar. Do you like talking back about it? Because I know you have so many other accomplishments and achievements and other things going on in your life, but people, I'm sure, no doubt, always ask you about it. So are you okay to talk about it?
Oh, absolutely. No question. Yeah. No,
Okay.
It was wonderful. It's a wonderful experience to do. And Julia was a wonderful person to work with. We shot it out in North Carolina, in Wilmington. And one of the main characters in the film, if you like, was the house, and that was a prop.
So that wasn't a real house?
An extraordinary experience. It wasn't a real house, no.
Wow.
What happened was they got a house out in a place called Figure Eight Island, just off the coast there, and they were going to use that, but there was a bridge out to the island, and there were a lot of dodgy characters in the area, so they thought that they could have got somebody could put a car across there in the morning and blackmail us or something like that. So in order to secure the place, they built their own house, and of course then it was like a studio in a sense, because they could move walls and get better shots, etc.
Okay, that's very interesting. Speaking of dodgy characters, that's one way we could describe your character in the movie, but he was far more than dodgy. I mean, how do you get into the role of a man so terrifying and menacing?
I've been practicing all my life.
Okay, now I'm scared. Who did you draw from, Patrick?
Well, there were two characters I'd say I based the character on. One was Anthony Perkins in Sight.
Oh, hopefully we haven't lost you again. It will come back. There we go. You're back again, Patrick. You based it on? This will always be the enemy of endeavor and adventure is technology, even though it's been a wonderful bonus to our lives, particularly this year. It doesn't always work as perfect as we want it. So let's hope Patrick's internet connection in Bray or thereabouts comes back to us very soon. Because Patrick is hopefully going to tell us a few more stories, and he's got a poem to read for us at the end. Now, we do have another performance at the end. If we don't get Patrick back in the next few minutes, if we can find Marion, are you there? Because Marion is going to perform again for us. Can we call on our super sub? Look, there you go. Marion, our super sub. Marion, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but would you be okay and ready to do a bit for us?
Okay.
Yeah, no, you take your time. Thank you again to everyone who's the violin is coming out, who has tuned in and joined us for this. We will, fingers crossed, have Patrick back. So, Marion, what are you going to do?
I'm doing Silent Night.
Oh, gorgeous. What a lovely, lovely piece. Okay, off you go.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.
Marion, you're a superstar. That was gorgeous.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy that.
I enjoyed it.
Lovely stuff, Marion. You're wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, at this stage, folks, I can't see that our guest Patrick Bergen has rejoined the call. So I don't know if David or Liam would like to come in just to acknowledge that. And if that's the case, we will trying to get Patrick back is the message that just popped up on my screen. Okay, we will hang tight for the for next minute or so because we are at 12:30. But even if we can get Patrick back to recite a poem, he's written a poem, in fact, that was published in the Ireland's Own magazine, which he wrote about his favourite poet, author John B. Keane. So it would be nice if we can get Patrick back maybe to share a little performance before we finish today. But as it stands, no word of that. There's David. Hi, David.
Hi, Aidan. I might just remind people to donate to the Harold's Cross Hospice. You know, in previous years, people have donated cash here in Turner Enterprise Centre, and we've very much gone cashless. So we're asking people to donate on their website, which is really simple process. You log on to the Our Lady's Hospice website, and you can actually select Harold's Cross because they've got 3 facilities, and very simply put in your details, put in the amount that you would like to donate. They very cleverly have it preset at 25 euros, but you can go in and click and select a smaller amount or a larger amount if you wish, and simply put in your card details to donate to the Harold's Cross Hospice, which is something we have done for years here at Turner Enterprise Centre, and we don't want them to miss out on our donations this year. So we would hope that everyone would go to the website after this excellent event and donate, please, to the Harold's Cross Hospice if you can. Okay.
Absolutely. David, thank you very much. Whilst we have you there and whilst we're filling time for a moment or two, how has it been for you and your members this year, and how have you adapted?
Well, it's been pretty devastating, really, because we run IT training, social activities for over 55s, and we run a lot of our activities in-house here in Turner. Unfortunately, with the size of the spaces that we have, we were unable to bring our members back in since March. And I suppose, like a lot of people, we've moved online. And our team here in Turner have done a wonderful job of putting together an online program using Zoom. However, the difficulty is that many people still cannot get on Zoom, despite our best efforts to try and show them through YouTube. So people miss the social interaction, as you well know, and I think that is a problem. And we really, really hope that in 2021, fingers crossed, we can actually get them back in here, because that's really, learning IT is one thing, but social interaction is something very different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only when it's taken away from us we realize just the absolute importance of it. David, thank you. And I can see Patrick is back in the room. Welcome back, Mr. Bergen.
The Virgin Zoomer is back.
Is that are you a Virgin Zoomer?
This is the first time ever.
Oh, wow. Well, the baptism of fire.
But I feel a bit nervous and jittery. That's the reason.
Not at all. You don't come across that way at all. And most people, when they get off Zoom the first time, if they've never done it before, they rarely get back. So credit for coming back and rejoining us. So thank you, Patrick. We'll finish on your poem on John B in just a moment. But there's just a couple of other things in regards to your own work.
Okay.
That we want to talk about. Obviously, Sleeping with the Enemy, a massive movie. But we also saw you in the Set Westerlies recently on Irish television. That was an interesting role.
It was very great. I was a publican and politician, the most cherished members of our community.
Yes, we have
Highly
a few
respected.
of them down in Kerry, don't we?
There's a few of them down in Kerry, all right, boy. Or was that Cork?
Yeah, a bit about. And then what's next in the pipeline for you? I know I was looking at your IMDb page. That's where everyone in the acting world's credits are listening. You've quite a few things slated for 2021.
There's a few things, and there's one, Finding You, which is already shot, which we shot up in Carlingford, which was a delight. I played an old fiddle player, street singer, busker, tramp, and that should be very, very nice. And just a reminder, currently there's a song, Switzer's Window, is out there at the moment, and the proceeds of that go to Bernardo's as well. So every charity should be supported this time of year. Mm-hmm. I've got a film called Dark Sun, which is hopefully to shoot in Mauritius next year, and developing some other projects on my own behalf. Yeah.
Wow, you're a busy man, and then of course there's the music as well, as you mentioned, Switzer's Windows, and the sessions. You must be missing the sessions, are you?
Very much so. That's the worst part, I think, because I used to love playing in the sessions, so both down in Tipperary and Cork and Kerry and Clonakilty and places like that. And of course, I'm still getting a lot of attention because of the Pope when I sang the Leonard Cohen song for the Pope. We're hoping to have that for charity this year as well.
Oh, fantastic. Talk about that for a moment, Patrick, because even you've had a big career and you've done a lot of amazing things, but to sing in front of the Pope in Croke Park must have been historic almost.
Oh, absolutely amazing experience, and very, very significant. And it was interesting that the song was written by Leonard Cohen. It's got a little irony. It's not completely, it has an edge to it, which was interesting. But it wasn't the first time I recited in Croke Park. I did St. Patrick's Prayer at Croke Park before the youth football final a couple of years ago as well. And I played St. Patrick in a movie some years ago, and they asked me to read his poem. And in fact, I'd like to remind your listeners and your viewers that St. Patrick's Prayer, or the breastplate, is something that people could usefully use during this time. Because I think it's probably what Patrick used when he was converting the pagan king. Because the breastplate is a wonderful piece. And if you actually do what the words say, rather than just say the words, it can be a very, very centering and spiritual moment. If I may do it very briefly in front of the camera, I won't.
We'd love you to.
But
that would be terrific.
If you can imagine this being done in the center of a room.
Okay.
A bit of a laugh before I start is that when I was playing St. Patrick, there was a scene where I had to bless some children, and they asked me to. There was no dialogue, and I asked the director. I said, "Could I put one of these prayers in there?" And he said, "Okay, go for it, Patrick." And I went, "Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ to my." He said, "Stop right there, Patrick. That's too many Christs. We'll never get you on American television."
Wow, the difference of that word and the context of it here and there.
So instead of that, I altered the word to spirit. So if you can imagine standing up and you go spirit before you and stretch your hands out in front.
Okay.
Spirit behind you. Spirit within you. And you could go through your chakras within you. Spirit on your right.
Oh, we're frozen again.
Spirit where you kneel, spirit where you sit, and spirit where you lie. And spirit where you arise. And you arise today through a mighty spirit, the invocation of the Holy Trinity, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Beautifully done, Patrick, and we'll be sure to look that up and maybe have a go at it ourselves as well.
If I might, before we go, then I'd like to. One of the proudest moments at the moment, when I was doing EastEnders, I got on the cover of Ireland's Own, and now I've got an even more prouder moment because now one of my poems has been printed in Ireland's Own for the Christmas issue, and it's a poem written for my wonderful, everybody's wonderful godfather, if you like, John B. Keane.
Fantastic. Take it away, Patrick.
From Hollywood to Cricklewood, JB was there, all around the universe, with and without a Kerry care. He played upon the heartstrings, and he could whistle too. He spoke to common people, the likes of me and you. He swung an imaginary hurley stick. He kicked a long football. He carried within his jaunty step both the fianna and the fall. He could turn upon a sixpence, he could catch you with his eyes, and there the sadness and the wisdom, the laughter and the cries. He would give encouragement, and he could pull a pint. He could pinpoint devilment when and where and how things were out of joint. Most of all, a kindly man, a man for all the seasons. He knew the sound of argument, he spread the sound of reason. I knew him, yes, I knew him. I can't say I knew him well, but in the short time that I knew him well enough to tell that he loved the world he lived in. Every face and every street. He loved all the little things, the hands of everyone he'd meet. He loved every field and every bush, every story ever told. He loved the brave, the beautiful, the silver and the coal. And yes, he loved the common man, and he spoke to you and me. sitting in our living rooms, in his books or on TV, in every theatre in every town. Sure, it is well known that without JB, the whole theatre world would have shut down. His wife, Mary, a delight. His reflections as brilliant as he. Fun and laughter and debate. Sure, you would leave his place in a terrible state and at only 3:30 in the morning. He gave his time and gave us all his talk. He gave us better, never worse. He gave us Bull McCabe and Sharon's curse and the Tinker's curse. He gave us pagans and Christians and rosaries. Ballybunion by the sea. He inspired the generations from his home in North Kerry. He gave advice, stay close to the one you love and let nothing come between. He gave us mystery. Jesus didn't call it heaven, he called it paradise. My rhyme has gone and I must finish my humble piece. I've hardly scratched the surface of everything he meant. Just let me say that I loved him and he was truly a great man. The kindness he and Mary showed me helped make me who I am.
That's gorgeous, Patrick. Very, very heartfelt, very personal, very beautiful tribute. Was he someone you knew?
I knew him very well. I did one of his poems, and I first came across him when I was, for my sins, the London Stroke Dublin representative in the Bachelor of the Year contest in Ballybunion, some 40 years ago. And we ended up in his pub at about 3 in the morning, and I'd lost, thank God. And I hadn't won. There was 300 quid first prize. And his wife, Mary, put her hand on my knee. He says, don't worry, Patrick. She says, you're destined for better things.
And wasn't she sure right of that? Patrick, it's been a pleasure to have you with us today. You're a man of great wit and wisdom. Do you have any final words to offer our viewers for 2021?
Have 2020 vision in 2021.
There you go. That's a nice way to end it. Patrick Bergen, thank you so much for being with us today. Pleasure. Happy Christmas.
And hang on. Helen wants to say hi.
Just want to say happy Christmas to everybody and with Happy New Year as well. But anyway, enjoy. Stay safe.
I'd love to sing you a song.
Stay safe, everybody.
You want to sing a song, Patrick?
Why not?
Well, I'm not in a rush if you're not in a rush and if everyone else watching is not in a rush. Sandra, are you in a rush?
No, I'm not in a rush.
Okay.
We'll sing
Brad,
one verse.
Song, yeah.
We've none of us have anywhere to go, so crack on.
That's it.
What's
It's the
your
highlight
order?
of social scene.
I don't think this is going to happen. Hang on.
The right harmonica?
The right guitar, is it?
Yeah, that's the one you were playing.
Okay. What are we
What are
saying?
you going to do? I don't know.
I think we're going to have to wing it.
Whispering in the morning light.
Whispering in the morning light across the pillow. I love you. What?
Very high.
We're gone wrong. We could call it a day. And God bless you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much. Thank you to Patrick. Thank you to Sandra. Thank you to Marion for coming in when we needed her there before we got Patrick back. And of course, thank you to the wonderful Mary Kennedy.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
All together now.
Oh, what fun it is to ride on a horse open sleigh. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh.
For our first time on Zoom, that wasn't bad, Patrick. You'll be addicted to it now like the rest of us. Great
Thanks a
stuff.
lot.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. The wonderful, legendary Patrick Bergen. Thank you to David. Thank you to everyone in the Active IT Society for having me here as well today. And in particular, like I said earlier, thanks to the wonderful Liz Feely. So for me, in my virtual studio here in Athlone, to you, wherever you are, we wish you a very happy, safe and healthy Christmas. 2020 mightn't have been the year where we got what we want, but it made us realize what we have and what's important, and that's each other. So take care and happy Christmas from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.